Reclaiming Native Truth was an unprecedented national research effort. Never before has there been such a sizable investment by philanthropy in this type of research, and certainly in terms of its investment in Native Americans.
So we knew from the beginning that we were going to be doing something that hadn't been done before. It's our belief that the work that we do this year and in the next year going forward will really create a foundation of information and data the Indian country can utilize.
Data collection for the research project included focus groups, in-depth interviews with political, judicial, civil rights, business, and entertainment leaders. The project also looked at nearly 5 million social media posts from Twitter, Facebook, and blogs. More than 2,000 people responded to a national survey testing new narrative and message strategies. In addition, the project conducted 3 national surveys on the key issues and perceptions of Native America.
What we learned from the Reclaiming Native Truth research is that I think it affirmed many assumptions that Native Americans had. And that's that there are deep-rooted biases and toxic assumptions that many Americans across the United States hold.
Many Americans, including those in key institutions such as courts, philanthropy, and Congress, hold a number of biases about Native Americans. And many of these beliefs are learned in grades K through 12. The most toxic is the sense that Native Americans are growing rich from welfare and casino dollars. The study found only 36% of Americans polled believe Native Americans face discrimination. This indicates the level of discrimination against Native Americans is underestimated compared to other groups. The invisibility of Native peoples in everyday life, media, popular culture, K through 12, education, and institutions is extremely damaging and contributes to bias, discrimination, and institutional racism. In addition, these biased narratives set by others also impact policy towards Native Americans. The majority of Americans know very little about Native Americans or know any Native peoples at all.
What I found really interesting today is that 40% of people still believe that Native Americans don't exist. The real problem is when young Indian people consume media made by non-Indians and then measure themselves against it. And so it is problematic in our own communities if our children don't have the opportunity to see themselves authentically from an Indigenous perspective.
The project has yielded some very promising pathways forward. 72% of Americans believe it is necessary to make significant changes to school curriculum on Native American history and culture. 64% of those surveyed, even among conservatives, supported increased resources to reduce poverty, add improved healthcare and education. We also learned that new, more accurate narratives about Native Americans work. The Native Truth Project tested messages on a number of Native issues, including tribal sovereignty, education, and the Indian Child Welfare Act. The messages highlighted values, accurate history, and the visibility and accomplishments of Native Americans today. More than half are willing to share the new messages.
In our research, we identified 3 groups. We identified allies, we identified movables, and we identified a 3rd group that's going to be more challenging for us to move.
This research has been a ton of aha moments. Why this project was really important is because most of us in our professional careers are working on dissuading those myths and had no idea what that core narrative that people held of Indians was. And so we were always treating the symptoms and not the disease.
One of the most important things for us to accomplish is to be able to make sure that policy decision makers actually understand who we are at the core of our souls, our culture, our spirituality, our contributions. And they haven't learned that in the education system, but they can learn it by us. And I'm excited about using this data. When we think about the work that we do at NCAI, we do a lot of great policy work, but what we do not very well is sharing what we do and sharing the message. This data is going to help us share that message in a way that people can find our work more useful.
So I think this project really kind of gives us that kind of shared opportunity that we can work with advocates and allies and others who are interested in social justice and in equity and we can all come together so that we can have a better way of life, socially and economically, while still retaining our identities. I think that's what this project helps do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the way that I think about this is that we build awareness about invisibility. We build awareness if we can get mainstream society talking about the way in which invisibility of Native people is the modern form of racism, step number one accomplished. Number two, if we can get people to take seriously the fact that they are not getting a good education about Native people and to be upset about that, right? To start seeking out more information.
We are so early on in the process of what we understand. And we've learned a lot in 18 months, but there's still a great deal we don't know. And what's exciting to me is the investigation and the research that happens as a result of this and carries on and adds nuance to this. This is where it gets exciting, that we're starting to build a body of research and a knowledge base around this that we didn't have before. And that's why it's important that this work carries on beyond this first phase of the project.
And this next phase is about taking action, and it's about taking action with a clear focus on 5 key targets where we think we can impact change: popular culture, media, K-12 education, policy, and philanthropy. And so really it's vitally important that this next phase happen, because this is really where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where the opportunity lies for organizations and activists and tribal leaders and different types of institutions to actually take this data and to take the learning and the strategies developed and actually make change happen.
Phase 2 of this project is the empowerment of many movements through data, resources, and a more truthful, accurate shared narrative.
We invite potential allies, supporters, and others to join us in doing their part to shift the narrative, to help us remove bias and barriers, and achieve our collective vision for the change we want to make to improve the lives of all Native peoples.